Union Broadcast Center. I'm Josh Fenton. This is Mr. Innovation, Saul Kaplan from Business Innovation Factory. Thank our friends over at Deepwater Wind for all their help and support. Saul, we just finished up the legislative session. It ended in the same chaos, disruption, political hackiness that we have for...
The state's still standing, the sun come out.
Why has innovation not touched politics and how politics is made?
Well, I don't know if that's true. Whether it's the kind of innovation we want is
that's right.
the discussion that we should have.
Right.
But,
they're no longer taking paper bags. They're now full of cash. They're taking bitcoins.
Yeah. Well, they vote electronically now. They've come into the 20th century.
And they've even removed the paper clips that used to have them all vote yes on everything out of their voting machines.
No, but we've talked about this before. I mean, technology and innovation in government have been strange bedfellows, haven't they? Very slow to make the forward investments in the use of technology, better information, better engagement with citizens. There's all kinds of room for innovation, and yet we still seem pretty old school where they're sitting at although this year, Speaker shut the sessions down at 10 o'clock. I remember sitting up. We used to sit at 2, 3 in the morning and wait for this. I still do this, even though it's been a long time since I've been in state government. I still watch because I appreciate all the backstories behind the deals that are going on to get to closure here. So I'm always watching it. I even sit at home and I'm watching the closed circuit television broadcast there. Just it's the best entertainment in town. The last day, 2 days.
Saturday afternoon and into night, between different players up there, probably got, off campus, probably got, I'll bet you 150 texts and emails about different things flying up there. And it seemed to be a little bit more bizarre than any other year. And Gary and I talked about it a little. It was this strange trade-off that was holding things up. They'd done the PawSox bill, but then they were still fighting.
Early, right?
Friday-ish. And then Senate President Dominic Ruggerio wanted the 195 amendment that would allow parcels to be merged together for the potential of Faines Tower. And then the Speaker wanted this bill sponsored by one person for one person in his district, which was the trade-off legislation for this Damiano insurance company, and it just seems to be one of the strangest trade-offs in the history.
Usually it's something of greater consequence that gets held hostage
Absolutely,
right at the end.
right.
And we've had years where they don't cut the deal and these things just go and have to be brought back in the next session. But there's always a list of priorities, and at the end when they're trying to reconcile the bills between the House and the Senate, the Senate President and the Speaker both have their lists, and then they send people across the
absolutely.
And they negotiate, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Some things never change.
Absolutely.
That was certainly true again this year. I always hold my breath. You hate to see government, where most of the substantive laws that get passed in the last 48 hours of the session. You would think they have the whole session that they could work through some of this stuff beforehand. It's not in the citizens' best interest because who can pay attention? We don't see the bills in advance. We don't get a chance, to weigh in, to call our representatives, and it all happens at the last minute. And you hold your breath and hope that things are going to be okay at the end. If you have a real pony in the race, you're sitting there waiting at the last minute, trying to figure out whether something happens. There's got to be a better way to run the railroad, as they say.
One of the big losers seem to be women. Package on sexual harassment, none of those bills moved. Issues on pay equity seem to get watered down to what some argued was ineffectiveness. how do we ever get there? Is there
Well, the stuff that I look at, I mean, there was some real healthy, there were bills on the floor this year.
Right.
I think there was real progress, in terms of raising some of those issues up.
On gender?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. I mean, this never happened before. These
Right.
bills never even made it onto the floor.
No.
The stuff I was watching was more like the every single year, the bills that try to change, the payday loan industry, and the lobbyists that are up there,
Right.
Trying to protect the industry, and enable them to charge rates that are obscene,
Right.
To people who can ill afford it.
Right.
And every year it's the same, and you scratch your head because you say this just doesn't make common sense. That there wouldn't be regulations to protect people from loans where they charge what, like 280%.
Yeah, it's just criminal.
People are forced to take out loans of several weeks in duration and end up owing, for years.
Right.
Based on that. And you would just think that logic would tell you that there could be a bipartisan, kind of support, for regulations like that. But this is what's wrong with government, right? Because the lobbyists have too much influence. These things happen at the very end when we don't have a good public discussion. There were a bunch of laws up there that every year it's the same around the collision and auto repair industry. Again, trying to lean against
Absolutely.
innovation and getting at cheaper parts, so it doesn't cost us as much. But you can't blame the people for lobbying and the repair shops for lobbying to protect themselves from competition.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where innovation comes in, right? We've got to allow innovation to come in to provide access to better, more cost-effective services. And instead, what we do is protect the incumbents, from the competition. And again, that happened this year. The same.
Yeah,
same thing
absolutely.
happened,
Same dynamics.
at the very end of the session, and this is frustrating.
Let's talk about some innovators. Elon Musk is not having a good couple of weeks. He's alleging that technologists within his organization have monkeyed with code, which is then sending the production process off kilter.
Yeah.
Is that gamesmanship because he's not hitting some production numbers, or is there some truth to that? And is that going to be that there's going to be an ebb and flow between employers and employees in this new dynamic work environment?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that just as old school? If true, is that as old school of
Right.
up at the loom? Sticking a fork in there to send it off because you didn't get a pay increase.
Yeah, and I don't know what, I did see those same articles, and I saw some of the conversation about this. I mean, you always worry about people trying to influence and undermine from the outside. You'd like to hope that people are not undermining from the inside, but
Right.
today, you really have to be mindful, and build trust relationships both in the organization and outside the organization. And you're just as likely to be undermined from within now as from without. And so he was trying to raise the flag and say somebody in our own organization was trying to undermine it. And how tight they are around the production, of the Model 3s, and Wall Street is watching like a hawk.
Absolutely.
Right? So anything that gets in the way of them meeting their production numbers, I mean, the whole company really relies on that right now. So it's a very
And just to
sensitive-
describe it for viewers,
Yep.
the Model 3 is the lower cost mass
Right.
market
Yeah.
Tesla vehicle. It's going to retail for about $35,000, $40,000, maybe a
the
little
Tesla
less.
you and I are going to end up driving it if we ever get to drive it.
Well, fancy guys like you will be able to,
that one.
We're waiting for the RIPTA bus pass Tesla to be able here at GoLocal, but for guys like you, yes. But you also have the $70,000, $90,000 models.
No. But this car means a lot because it's a much higher volume, higher production, lower price point.
Right.
From the cars.
And it's
that
a
most
real,
people can't
and the
afford.
difference
Right.
is it's a real car, right? This is
Right.
a car that performs, and it's got design elements, and it's got detail. A lot of the electric cars that have been
Right.
brought, the Prius and things like that, have a persona of being, ultra green and boiled down and a little milk toast. No one ever saw a Prius go down the street and go, wow, that's a beautiful car.
Well, I mean, it's a great car. He's a disruptor, so it's a really remarkable car, and that's why a lot of people ponied up money for
Right.
a deposit on this thing.
Right.
And the whole company hinges on being able to get to about, I don't know, they say 5,000, a production of about 5,000 of these cars a month.
Right.
And so.
And they've got a backlog of how long?
They've been struggling to get to that number. And a lot of people are probably more patient than you would be with most consumer products. But this is the car that puts Tesla on the road, excuse the pun, to literally changing the balance to cars that are electric, right? We need some kind of tipping point, that starts to move us as a country
Right.
in this direction. I think a lot of us believe that we're going there, and
Right.
we need to get to that tipping point, so that we can use more sustainable energy sources and get ourselves off of gasoline-based cars.
Right.
Right. So you root for the guy, and you root for Tesla, and they're beautiful cars, and they're totally worth it. Particularly the Model 3, that'll be in range of people who can't afford the more expensive cars. So I don't know what to make of what he said this week. I think this blows over. I don't think it's that big a deal. I think this is just the pressure of trying to get to those production quotas, and to placate Wall Street, who's sitting there waiting, so that the stock price continues to stay high enough for them to be able to do this. So we'll see. But this is not particularly an innovation discussion. This is anybody running an enterprise, that's
Right.
trying to achieve forecasts, to keep stakeholders happy
Right.
internally and externally, is going to have to deal with this kind of thing. And I don't think Elon's overly concerned about it. I think he's accustomed to it, because when you're the innovator,
Right.
you stick your head out, and people are going to come after it. And so he's used to it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bet against him.
Christian Cowan was on from Polaris MEP, the
Yeah.
sort of consulting group for manufacturers.
Yeah.
And one of the things he was on earlier today, and one of the things we delved into was the issue of AI and robotics and automation and all of these
Yep.
things. And he pushed back on some of the premises that are not going on, Darrell West and others, that this is further down the road than people are talking about. And he uttered more like 10 years. I challenged that a little bit. Where are we with this? And is anybody really ready for it? Are companies having discussions? Alex and Ani or Luca and Danny or some of the manufacturers that advertise with us, are they sitting around the room? Do they have a SWAT team thinking about this? What do you think's going on in business?
Yeah, so-
You talk to as many businesses as I do.
Well, first of all, let me start with, I'm glad you had the folks from MEP, here. This is a program. Did you talk about the history of this program?
Yeah.
This was a program. You want to talk about moving towards AI.
Right.
This was a program, that was one of the leaders in helping manufacturers with lean manufacturing.
Absolutely.
And to get more efficient through process reengineering.
Right.
They stuck to that too long, right? Organizations learned how to do it.
Yeah.
And MEP was trying to figure out what its next act was going to be. This is true across the country,
Yeah.
right? Because this was a federally
Yep.
catalyzed
Funded, right.
program in partnership with the states. We housed it at the agency when I ran it at the EDC.
At Commerce, EDC.
Before it was Polaris, before they branded it.
Right.
It did what they did now. It's a really good program, but it was too slow to get to an innovation agenda and helping these manufacturers do more than just become more efficient. Because what they needed to do is transform what they were doing, to think of themselves not just as a manufacturer, but to get closer to the customer experience and to innovate in other aspects of their business. And we lost a lot of jobs and a lot of companies that either moved out or went out of business because they stuck too long to, we'll be able to survive if we just make the manufacturing process more efficient, but they got out-innovated around the world, and it didn't work. So MEP now, right, if I understand it, has a broader range of services and ways to help
Absolutely.
companies
Yeah.
than just lean manufacturing.
100%.
Okay,
Yeah.
so now let's go to, so now I'm surprised a little bit to hear that when you talk about one of the hottest emerging, technologies, artificial intelligence, that you would say that, that companies are slow. I don't know if that's just the companies that he's working with here in Rhode Island. I believe a lot of them are probably too slow. A lot of the companies I'm talking with nationally, companies of any significant size, are doing more than thinking about
Right.
AI, right? They're watching this movie and saying, we've got to get much better at capturing data, being able to store, manipulate the data to get the intelligence that helps us be smarter about how we serve our customers, how we shape our products and services. So this is no longer some future technology, that we've got to watch on the radar screen, to see when it's going to impact us 20 years from now.
Right.
This is a technology that is not just emerging, but you can use it now, right? That you can use it to actually get smarter about how you run your business, how you shape your offerings, right? And get better and innovate on an ongoing basis. So if you're not thinking about this,
Right.
You're awfully slow and you may be too late. You absolutely should be thinking about artificial intelligence and how you use it to innovate not just your products and services, your capability set, your whole model of how you go to marketplace is going to be leveraged by how well you can capture information from your own business,
Right.
and outside sources of information that will help you do it. I mean, you see it in your business. Right?
Nonstop.
Right.
Right. It's all about the numbers. Almost everything we do, the numbers have an effect on
Right.
how we're proceeding.
Right.
And I'll give you a perfect example. I'll talk about it here. Well, one of the political pundits was spinning a story to us about why it was the most important thing in the world. And my response was, people are not reading fights about the governor's race right now.
Right.
They don't care. We're not going to keep writing about them endlessly. If there's news, there's real news. But right now, what are you thinking about for next week?
What am I thinking about?
Yeah, for next week.
I'm thinking.
Are you on
about-
vacation next
I'm
week?
thinking about the holiday.
Right.
I'm thinking about some time up on Lake Winnipesaukee.
Right, right.
This is what
Now,
I'm
are
thinking
you
about.
contemplating the Joe Trillo Board of Election complaint because Alan Fung has a billboard in Johnston that might not have been properly recorded in his campaign finance report? Is that what you and Sue were talking about last night over?
Not even thinking about it this week. Never mind
Not
next
even
week.
thinking
when,
about it. And that's my point.
Wait,
But we can make that
wait.
analysis.
But you would think some of these
based on number.
politicians. You would think some of these politicians would figure out that if you're going to take donations, somebody's going to find out, and you might want to file the right paperwork about what the value of the donation is. Not for nothing.
You would think so, but it doesn't seem to happen very often.
Just an aside. You don't need artificial intelligence to figure that out.
Well, listen, give credit to Cranston Mayor Alan Fung. People criticized him for his relationship with Carpianato Group and his rent issues there. So what did he do? He announced he was moving. He moved his headquarters to Warwick. Guess who's the landlord in that building? Carpianato Group. You cannot write that only in Rhode Island.
Well, stuff bounces off the walls here in our small state.
Yeah, that's right.
But the other thing about artificial intelligence is you don't have to build it internally. You asked about companies here like Alex and Ani and other companies here. It's not about building your own department,
right?
Although that might be the right answer. But there are lots of ways to access this and tools and software that help you bring that kind of intelligence in. You've got to get out of this mode of you have to build everything in-house in order to access new capabilities, right? We can put capabilities into our models of the way we serve our customers, and oftentimes this is sitting up in the cloud and you just have to access it today.
Right.
So the smallest of companies, right? So this isn't just some of the bigger bigger companies that we work with, right? Small to mid-sized companies can behave and compete like bigger companies because they can access capabilities, right, that sit out in the cloud,
Right.
that stay current, stay innovative, and you can plug them in and you can unplug them, right? So you can innovate much faster, you can be more flexible.
Right.
These days of trying to build everything, right, it takes too long, it's too expensive, and it's too slow. It doesn't change, it's not nimble enough.
Right. Absolutely. What do you see on trends? I mean, you're talking to companies across the country. Are you seeing any new elements that are beginning to catch fire that you see as a transformative element of how they are doing business and how they are becoming, I'll use the old word efficient, I'll use the new word innovative?
Yeah, well, I mean, you picked the one that's on everybody's mind right now, and that's artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
I don't know a single company, that does not want to be caught flat-footed at the way they get at this intelligence and the way they bring this intelligence into every aspect. It doesn't matter how we source talent and hire people, how we serve our customers, how we distribute our products, how we manufacture our products. There is almost no part of an organization that isn't going to be aided by some form of intelligence, that gets stitched into decision making and to the way you execute it. And so a lot of companies have pivoted from, that's interesting, let's read analyst reports, to see what the trend is, to we better figure out what the actual capability is. What do we need to do with this capability, so that we can change the value equation, and everybody is scrambling to do this now. And so I think the artificial intelligence thing, is probably the hottest, of all the emerging technologies that you see. I mean, everybody's thinking about IoT, or how do we connect and create smarter products, right? So how do I take an industrial product, and hook it up to the internet, add intelligence to the product, right? So I can keep raising my price point and stay competitive in the marketplace. I think that shift is a little bit overblown. I think there's a ton of value there, but in the end, it's going to come down to what products do you really want or need? Like, do I really need my toothbrush hooked up to the internet, right? So that's it's keeping track of it. And I've got a piece of software that tells me how many times did I go horizontal and vertical in my mouth, and there was.
Aren't you supposed to sing "Happy Birthday" three times or something?
Or whatever. So you understand my point. It goes a little crazy where you start putting everything. Right, and then you have some downstream issues, like if everything in your home is connected to the internet, does that raise some security issues, around all this information and people being able to hack in? They're going to take over your refrigerator,
right?
From the outside. So
not our refrigerator, please.
Never mind your self-driving car.
Yeah, that's right. Last and bonus edition, because we're off next week. What's going to happen at BIFF in September?
Oh yeah. So now we're really down to it. So September 13th and 14th is going to come
at Trinity Rep.
Awfully quick at Trinity Rep.
This is the 14th.
Right? This is our 14th year. Every year.
Sold out.
500. Not sold out yet, but will be. It is every year. And 500 what I call innovation junkies from around the world, including many from here in Rhode Island.
Ace Tickets has tickets up there for $20,000. I mean,
it's not TED. It's not like the TED conference. We call it a smaller, more intimate TED. But it's going to be really good. I'll tell you about a storyteller. I usually bring one each week. So let's talk about, everyone's talking about criminal justice these days.
Reform.
So let's talk about reimagining prison. Right? Not that that's the only part of the criminal justice system, but boy, do we need to reimagine what's happening in our prisons here and around the country. So here's the first psychologist who was put in charge of a major prison, Cook County.
Oh yeah,
prison.
Read about him.
Nika, that's a woman.
Santo, I think.
Nika Jones Tapia is a storyteller at our summit. She's just finished a 3-year
She's running
stint.
Cook County prison system.
She just finished 3 years running Cook County Prison, one of the largest, and I don't need to tell you, what happens in Chicago,
Yeah, right.
in the criminal justice system there. So she came at it completely differently. Almost everyone who runs prisons comes out of the prison system,
Right.
And they grew up, how do you run a prison, right? And she came at it more from the mental health and well-being, as a psychologist. You want to talk about, people that have challenges, that are sitting in a prison system. If you actually think of the role of a prison as taking somebody, away from society temporarily in the hopes that they're going to come back, into society.
Right.
So she thought about it completely different, and wait till you hear her story about some of the things she put in place out in Chicago at Cook County. So really excited. The kind of storyteller we love, a personal human story, trying to transform something that you don't deal with every day,
Yeah.
right? But needs to be reimagined, and we listen to it not because we ever see ourselves running a prison someday, because we can learn from people that are approaching transformation, who share honest and genuine stories about what does it take, to not just incrementally change something, but to actually transform it. And yes, we can make it safer and easier to manage, and listening to stories and creating a network of people that are trying to do that is what the summit's all about. So
It may be the only thing in America being debated between left and right in which there appears to be some consensus that the existing structure does not work, and everyone from Paul Ryan and Jared Kushner are talking about trying to find new ways of dealing with.
You'd think we'd be better at it. You'd think we'd be able to take issues and say, these are not issues for one side or the other on the aisle,
Right.
But things that we should be able to work together. And I just really worry that we've taken almost every issue, and we've polarized around
Is
it.
part of it that while all of us agree that it doesn't work, and all of us agree that there needs to be more tools in the toolkit, that we don't have enough data to be able to say, listen, this really worked with 90% of the, because she as a reformer with a completely different approach is an anomaly still. Most people, as you say, prisons have been run functionally the same way for
a long time.
100 years. Lock them up, throw away the key, keep them isolated. It's a punishment structure, not a retraining, not a reinvigoration, not a reinvention type of approach.
Well, what we need to get to, because it's a both and, we need real models that have been transformed that we can all look at, right? To say, look, it could actually work, right? We could deliver it. There are jobs there,
right?
It accomplishes what it needs to. It creates value to society, but it's not good enough just to demonstrate that it can work in a different way. Now we've got to expand that and scale that, and now you have the biggest barrier to innovation, which are people and stubborn organizations with vested interests.
Absolutely.
The unions of the people who work there, right? All the
and
rules
then listen, and all it
the-
takes is one, 1,000 prisoners could be reformed and their lives could be improved. But if 2 of them break away, commit a horrific crime, a violent crime, the whole system will
then all of a sudden, then we're back
Right.
and people blow that up.
Right.
So I think we're going to always be innovating. The job is never done, but we have got to try more stuff. We've got to reimagine not just prison. We could substitute any school,
Right.
hospital, government agency, but we've got to stop playing on the edges, and we've got to be bolder about what we allow ourselves to imagine, and then we have to use our political will, right, to be able to bring some of these changes to benefit those of us who live here in the community, in society. Sounds easy, not so easy.
Right.
So I have a lot of respect for people who devote a lot of effort and passion to make this kind of change happen.
Well, look forward to BIFF every year. It's it's sort of the cool place to be right around primary time. It'll be right around primary week. So maybe the losers can come over and you'll give them guest seating for them to help innovate. Maybe you should give the winners so that they can have some creative ideas going into the general election. So maybe it'll be a bonding place for winners and losers to join together. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today on Business this Monday at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Thank our friends over at Deepwater Wind. And tomorrow, we've got 2 hours. You will see the debut of Rachel Nunes at the 3 o'clock hour, and then Kate Nagel at 4 o'clock. And I know the day is jam-packed. And then into Wednesday, we'll have The Taste. Kate Nagel, she will not be at the State House this week, but I think on Friday we have a little special surprise. I think we're headed down to Bristol to take a look at what's going on 4th of July. So very busy week here, thanks to Saul Kaplan, and we'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock on GoLocal Live.